Fire chiefs say Saturday is looming as one of the worst days for bushfires in living memory.
Gale force winds are expected to accompany the extreme heat.
A horror weekend ahead, with the mercury predicted to top the 40s again on Saturday.
Fire authorities are warning the public to prepare for the worst.
Given last week's heat wave, it has totally and completely dried the state, and given the weather and given the state of the fuel, we're in probably uncharted territory in terms of fire danger. Let's start off by our situation. Last week we had a heat wave, and you'll remember that I talked about a whole range of consequences out of the heat wave people didn't really appreciate. Well, on the news last night they talked about morgues being full. Did anyone pick up that story that we talked about the Chicago heat wave and what that means? It's really important to understand and appreciate the significance of that event in the history of Victoria, and I've written my Fireman article this week talking about maybe we're being a part of history, and I believe there's a real opportunity for CFA in this next short period to be recognised as being a very historical part of CFA's history over the next short period. And in giving this briefing about the weather tomorrow, I want you to reach back to last week to see how we as a community and we as CFA coped with the event, and the fire services and the emergency services in particular. The situation is quite clearly, in a weather sense for tomorrow, that we are in almost uncharted territory. And when I say uncharted territory, there are no records that show the sort of fire conditions tomorrow predicted, and weather conditions tomorrow, there are no records that are worse than the details that are up for tomorrow. On Wednesday I had the day off, and on Wednesday night I went on the little trusty computer, and it works pretty well, and I looked at the weather forecast, and when I looked at it I thought, I couldn't say I've had too much to drink because I'm doing that Feb fast thing, and those of you who want to give me money later, you can give it to me, but I looked at it and said these figures have got to be wrong, there's got to be a glitch in the computer, because it had 14 of our 20 odd sites had FDIs of above 100. Now I'll go through them in a minute. I looked at it again in the morning and they hadn't changed. I rang Ewan Waller, the chief at DSE. He said to me, no, they're not wrong, it's not looking good. And when I show you the figures in a minute or two and explain them to you, they've actually gone a little bit worse. So our weather situation is we're in uncharted territory. Our fire danger being a combination of weather and fuel. If last week didn't stuff the fuel in the state of Victoria, nothing ever will. And our weather conditions are as bad as they can get. Hot northerly winds, low humidity, strong winds, and a southwesterly wind change with no rain. Okay, so we're as bad as it can get.